Good morning. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Being we have no old business, we will move on to approval of minutes for the August 7th, 2024 meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from August 7th.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Consideration of change orders.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 233 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 223, place 9 in pending status, and deny 1. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve 223 change orders and place 9 in pending status and deny 1 for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 22 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 22. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve all 22 prior pending change orders as reviewed and presented by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 5 tax sale cancellations. We have 1 in Vernon Parish due to being erroneously sold and 4 in Cattle Parish due to a trailer being removed. Staff requests approval of 5 tax sale cancellations.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 5 tax sale cancellations.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Excuse me, can everyone use this time to silence their cell phones, please?
Chairman, next on the docket, item 6 is consideration of the motion limine filed by filed by the assessor in the TGNR matter. The taxpayer representative Colton Asing is on Zoom. Colton, is Ashley joining as well, or is it just going to be you?
I believe Ashley is in here as well.
Yes, I'm here as well. Thank you.
Great. Ashley, can you turn your camera on? And Ashley, if you'll unmute, I'm going to administer an oath, Colton, to you and Ashley. You'll raise your right hand and simply affirm the oath by stating, "I do," and state your name. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Colton?
I do.
And Ashley?
I do.
Assessor? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Brian Eddington. On behalf of the Jackson Parish Assessor's Office, you have a full docket. I'll be real brief. Before you today is a motion in limine, which is just a fancy word for a motion to strike. Specifically, we're seeking to have some exhibits that were pre-filed by the taxpayer stricken from the record as they were not provided to the assessor prior to the deadline for filing an appeal with the Board of Review. That's the standard under 47-1989. There is no dispute that these documents were not submitted to the assessor, and on their face, they are strikeable. However, 47-1989 C2 also provides that upon a showing of good cause, the commission may accept additional evidence and send the matter back to the assessor for reconsideration. And in a filing that the taxpayer made Friday, it appears that that's what they are requesting. The standard for submission of additional evidence is they have to show that there was good reason for not submitting the evidence to the assessor prior to the protest deadline for the Board of Review. In this case, their response is, well, we thought that what we had submitted was sufficient. With all due respect, that is not good cause. They could have submitted the information. It is particularly not good cause because in this case, they submitted no evidence to the assessor. During the review period, the assessors or one of the assessor's staff members sent an email that's attached to my most recent filing, sent an email asking about this. They simply said, oh, these, they made some verbal comments regarding where these pipelines were located. And clearly we're talking about pipelines, not oil wells, but they submitted no documentation. They filed a protest with the Board of Review. They didn't submit any evidence to the Board of Review. They didn't even go to the Board of Review. The first time the documents that they now seek to submit, which are a series of maps and aerial photos, was when they pre-filed them as exhibits with this commission. This is precisely the situation that the amendment from a couple of years ago to 47-1989 C2 was designed to prohibit. And I would move that these exhibits should be stricken.
Thank you. Can we hear from the taxpayer?
Hi. Yes. To address some of his points, initially when we were arguing or negotiating this value, our argument was that flow lines are not taxable under the new guidelines. And that is provided for, or that is explained in Rules and Regulation, Chapter 9, Section 901B. When this was brought to the Board of Review, we were made aware that the argument was that these are pipelines, not flow lines. And so the additional evidence that has been submitted is basically explaining that these are flow lines, not pipelines. So when we realized that our negotiation was on a different topic than we had initially, provided evidence for, we had to bring up the additional evidence to support what we initially put and to kind of address the new issues that have been brought up. Ashley, would you like to expand further on that?
I think that covers it. I think the whole argument is really whether or not, per the new rules and regulations that were adopted for oil and gas last year, whether or not the lease lines are taxable or if they're included in the production train. It is our understanding and interpretation as it's written in Chapter 9 of the rules and regulations that the lease lines are not to be assessed separately. So at the time when we were, initially addressing these issues during open book, that was kind of our argument that this is provided for in Chapter 9. And then filing our Board of Review appeal. We were just, unaware at the time the burden of proof or documentation that would be needed to back up or prove something that's clearly expressed in Chapter 9. This is new for last year, so. But it is clearly written in Chapter 9 that the lease lines, are captured in the production train in both the explanations of lease lines and in the production train explanation.
Extension, comment?
I'm going to probably regret this. Yeah, they're correct. They have correctly framed the issue presented by this appeal. What they've danced around is a question before the commission today, that is these specific exhibits. These exhibits are attempted to bolster their claim that these are lease lines and therefore are part of the production train. I want to be clear, as a matter of law, we disagree with that, but we've got a more fundamental issue that the evidence that they're submitting, again, for the first time to this commission to show that these are lease lines were never provided to the assessor. And I would add they were never provided to the Board of Review. Under 47-1989 C2, that evidence is inadmissible. Thank you, Commissioners.
Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion? Mr. Hoffman, let's just clear, are we voting, if we're voting to accept the motion, is that,
So Sure. A motion, a motion by you all to grant the assessor's motion in limine would exclude the evidence that the assessor has objected to. A motion by you all to deny the motion filed by the assessor would be a motion to accept the evidence.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, do I hear a motion from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the assessor, motion to deny the evidence submitted.
Okay, is there any discussion?
So just to clarify, Commissioner Frazier, the motion before the commission is a motion to grant the assessor's motion in limine to strike or exclude the evidence that the assessor has objected to, correct?
Any questions from the commission? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion is granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a nice day.
Good morning. If you have an appeal on today's docket, I'm going to administer an oath to you. If you go ahead and stand up in your chair, and I'll have you raise your right hand. I'll indicate to you individually when it's your turn to affirm the oath, and I'll ask you to state your name. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Russell Almaraz, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross, I do. Larry Jr., I do.
Thank you.
Charlotte Phillips, I do.
Ted Bolton, I do.
Y'all may have a seat. Got to do the appraisers. Drika, can you help me out? Appraisers, I'll administer an oath to you. I'll ask you to affirm the oath when I indicate to you. If you will all turn your cameras on and unmute. Luke, I can't see you yet.
I see myself on the screen here. Hold on. I'm trying to restart the video. Is
There
that
we go.
better?
Yep.
Okay.
I can see you now. Perfect. Appraisers, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mark?
I do.
Luke?
I do.
Paul?
I do.
Danny?
I do.
Marquet?
I do.
Josh?
I do.
Sandy?
I do.
George?
I do.
All right. Very good, Chairman.
Thank you. We can call the first appeal.
The first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Charlotte Phillips versus Assessor LG Williams on the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77112. Ms. Phillips. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. You can go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Charlotte Phillips.
Oh.
I have an agreement with the assessor.
Yes, sir. Good
Orleans
morning.
Assessor's Office.
Russell Almaraz for the Assessor's Office. Spoke with the taxpayer. We have a consent agreement between the two parties. Land value being 21,600, building 113,400 for a total fair market value of 135,000.
Okay, and that's agreeable to the
I
taxpayer?
agree with that. Yes.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the taxpayer with the assessed value of $21,600 of land, improvements $113,400, a total of $135,000.
And we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you, ma'am.
The next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Oswald H. Maroon Jr. versus Assessor LG Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72117. Mr. Oswald.
Yes, we also have an agreement.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. 1 second. Apologize, just getting the math. spoke to the taxpayer. We have a agreement between the parties for a land value of 145,200, a building value of 362,800 for a total fair market value of 508,000.
Taxpayer is acceptable to that?
I do.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the consent agreement between the taxpayer and the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office of $145,200 for the land, $362,800 for the building value, for a total of $508,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
It's been a long year. I have been looking forward to this. It was good to meet you, and thank all of you so much. Thank you. Very happy.
All right, next we have item Z on the agenda. Is the appeal of Ferret 75 LLC versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221770048.
I'm Patrick Lynch. I'm the owner of Ferret 75, and we have an agreement with the assessor to bring the cost down to 695 total.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. We had to have a consent agreement with the taxpayer. The breakdown would be 133,200 for the land, 561,800 for the building, for a total fair market value of 695.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the Orleans Parish Assessors Agreement with the taxpayer for the land at 133,200 and improvements at 561,800 and a total of 695,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're just showing off now, Russell.
Next, next we have item K, the appeal of Rashad J. Bowling versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221730081. Mr. Bowling?
Sir. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth shall be God? Yes, sir. And your name is? Rashad Bowling. Thank you. Have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can go ahead.
I think we've come to an agreement.
Yes, sir. If it pleases the
Alvarez?
commission, the assessor's office and the taxpayer have come to an agreement. The land would be 15,200. The building would be 194,800 for a total fair market value of 210,000.
And you're okay with that, taxpayer? Okay. Any discussion from the commission? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the agreed with the taxpayer and assessor's office of land value of $15,200, $194,800 on improvements, total of $210,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank
Next, we have item N on the agenda. It's the appeal of Lawrence J. LeBlanc versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221730025.
Raise your right hand. Swear or affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth shall be God?
Yes.
And your name?
you.
Your name?
Chandra first.
Thank you. Sir, you can pull up the second chair.
Good morning. You can go ahead and get started.
No, we're willing to accept the appraisal that the state did. Okay. Yes, we're willing to accept the appraisal that the state did.
Mr. Alvarez?
Unfortunately, it broke my streak. Okay, I'm sorry. So we take a look at this property here. And this property was originally valued at $230,000. by the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. The taxpayer's original request was $200,000. We performed a fee simple appraisal on the property for this hearing. That revised value was $195,000, slightly less than what the taxpayer requested at the Board of Review. We disagree with the tax commission's appraisal. We think that it's a little low considering, like I said, there's another couple of factors that might not have been available to the commission staff. The property is currently insured for $170,000. Now, while we don't feel that that is indicative of market approach on its own, if you take the insurance value plus the land, puts it at $182,200, which is still in the ballpark of what the taxpayer requested and what our revised our revised appraisal requested. We think that with the tax commission's appraisal, there were square foot adjustments that we thought were a little bit off from what we would have done. For instance, Andre sold for $91.27 a square foot. The adjustment for the square footage difference was $46.72. 1300 Andre, the sale was $76.17. The adjustment for square footage was $37.99. So it was a higher adjustment for a negative value, which would reduce the overall sale price, but a lower adjustment for a positive value, which would increase the sale price. Same thing with Deslawn. Is sold for $143 a square foot. The adjustment was for $50 a square foot. Once again, there was a high adjustment for a negative value, which would artificially deflate that sale price. And there was no weight given to the income approach. We do have some movement on our end. We do realize that they asked for 200. We came in at 195. That insurance value would be 182. Somewhere in that ballpark is good. We just think the 157 is completely low and we can't go with that.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Paul Bennett with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property with an undisputed land value of $12,200, improved value of $144,800 for a total value of $157,000. This was achieved primarily through the sales comparison approach with the income approach, completed as a secondary indicator, which fell at 163,000, which is a pretty tight range with our sales comparison approach at 157,000. In regards to the square footage adjustments that were made, those are in line with the consistent method that we appraise all these properties with. So that those seem to be fair and adequate. The looking at the assessor's appraisal, they went further out, 0.9 miles, 0.88 miles, versus all of ours are within a half a mile or less of the subject.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the commission?
I have a question for the Orleans Parish. What is your offer to them? You tell us you can wiggle, so tell us what you're willing to do.
Okay, no problem. So I can come in slightly lower at 180,000 total fair market value, which I think is consistent and fair. Especially, it's on the low end of all the values that we've discussed. And it's 20,000 less than their initial request.
That would be 12,200 of land and the difference on the value.
Yes, sir. I can do the math real quick if you want.
Any more questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the 180,000, even before the assessor's agreement with that. I think the comparables on Andre that both the assessor and LTC used support that, as well as the average of all sales come in at 182,000. So 180,000 total.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can we get the breakdown for land and improvements on that so we can all have that?
I believe it's 12,200 for land, 100,
67, 8.
Excuse me. I have a professional appraisal report, home inspection report. This is why the property value is low. It's a very extensive report, you know, that was sent to, the state and everything. And the problem with this house is nothing has been done since Katrina. And you got foundation problems. You got, you know, when you're doing your comparative analysis, the comparative analysis just don't fit. You know, I've being a professional contractor, I don't have license anymore, but I am an investor, property investor, and went through everything thoroughly. Went through his report thoroughly, which is a very thick report, you know, and you know, the numbers that he's talking about, yes, those are numbers in that area, but the houses just don't compare. The houses aren't even close. This is a very old house that had some updates done since Katrina, you know, doing that 10 foot of water being in them houses back then, but nothing has been done to this house since then, you know, and so this is why, you know, we agree with the state, even though the state came in above what I assessed the value to be. We still was able to say, well, yeah, let's go ahead on and accept that.
It's up to us to determine what value we set. We take the states into account, we take the taxpayers' requests into account, and we also take whatever the city says. So the fact, you know, once again, and we're gonna make a motion, we'll see, but you requested $200,000 originally.
Yeah.
The city's offering 180 now.
Yeah, but
When you're trying to, I get it, you want the state one because it's low, it's the lowest of all of them.
no, I'm saying the reason why it was a rush job.
Once
It was
again,
a rush job that they put these numbers down because this is our first time even approaching this type of situation here. You know, I mean, other than that, you know, we hadn't had all the information that we needed because we had to get this into the local to do their whatever they had to do, or we were just gonna lose out totally altogether. But we didn't have the information, you know. But once we got the information and we had the hearing in New Orleans, you know, we presented this information, but they would not accept the information.
because it was presented after the deadline, I assume that's what they told you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and once again, we have the tax commission has no say over what the deadlines the assessor set. We can only act on the information that was turned in a timely manner.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Russell, with the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Russell, how long has the house been livable?
How long has the house been livable?
Mhm.
That I do not know. There's no record that we have, as far as, what I can pull off my computer now, as far as how long it's been habitable. I couldn't tell you. The taxpayer said that it took, damage in Katrina, and more than likely it did because 80% of the city took damage in Katrina. But then Katrina was 20 years ago, so I'm
Yeah.
sure it's been livable for a long time
Yeah.
since then.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any additional questions from the commission? Okay, we have a motion to accept the New Orleans Assessor's Office of 12,200 for land, 167,800 for improvements, for a total value of 180,000. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up item R on the docket is the appeal of Assessor L.G. Williams versus All Nash Together LLC and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73192.
Sure. Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. Thank you. Your name? Brian Hale. Thank you.
Good morning. You can go ahead and get started.
Yes, I am ready. Okay, I guess my name is Brian Hale, for the property at 23864 Chef Mature Highway out of New Orleans, which is in the zip code of 70129. I have gone, I guess, round and round a couple of times with this particular property, with the assessor's office, and I guess the main reason I am here today is, would be an equalization argument to a certain extent as to, I see that, they get appraisals done on the property, potentially what the property could be valued at, what it may be able to sell for, a lot of hypothetical situations that could or could not happen. But I have some experience in looking at properties and the values of properties and using assessor websites to see what they're doing regarding property values and how they go about using square footage values. And what I'm disturbed about is that, they want to charge me or assess my improvement, I should say. I'm okay with the land value. I have no issue with that. But my property, the improvement is 1,200 square feet. That's air conditioned. That's what it is, and that's what they agreed to. But based on the value that they have and want to assess me at $203,000, that's basically $169 a square foot. And just keep in mind here, folks, the issue of these properties that are located out there at Lake Catherine, Lake Pontchartrain area, everything was demolished pretty much after Hurricane Katrina. There was only maybe 20 improvements that were still standing. So all of the buildings or improvements that have been built since that point in time are relatively the same age or very close. So we're not talking about 100-year-old buildings versus 20-year-old buildings. Everything's basically about the same. They're built similarly. They all have to be 16 feet above base flood elevation. They all, on piling. They all have to be storm capable. So there's not a lot of discrepancy as to value or what these buildings look like or what they should be appraised at. It's all a very similar product, believe it or not, unlike some other places. So there's an address. Okay, this is directly from the assessor, Orleans Assessor's website right here. There's another property, which is at 24036 Chef Ventura Highway. Now, the square footage, according to the documentation here, is 1,200 square feet. Yet the 2024 certified value of this property is $150,000. That's apparently okay by them. So that's basically $125 a square foot, which I actually offered to the parish, to the assessor's office to do, agree to that rate. I said, if it's good enough for the guy down the street from me with a very similar improvement, why do you need to get 169 out of me? Here's another one. This property is located at 23924 Chef Ventura Highway. The square footage of the building is 1,595 square feet. It's assessed at $159,000, which is $99 a square foot. Another discrepancy compared to the 169 they want me to pay. Here's another property, 23178 Chef Ventura Highway. The building size is rather large, it's 3,780 square feet, according to their documentation, not mine. And that property is assessed, the building, at $362,000, which is $95 per square foot. If you do real estate research on Redfin, Redfin says in a zip code 70129 where my property is located at, right off of their website, no fanciness, just okay, what's the value per square foot of the properties in 70129? The property comes back at, Redfin comes at $121 a square foot. Realtor.com, another valuable website that's on the internet out there, comes back at $120 a square foot. So, when I went back and forth with this and the other commission sided with me and my values, even lesser. But, I came back to the assessor's office and said I would agree to $159,000 for the value of my improvement. The 31,400 would stay the same for the property, which I have no issues with. And I offered to go at 191 for the total price or total cost or value of that property. So again, these assessors, they all have their CAMA systems where the data for all the properties is installed there. They all have it. They all know what the values are. They can very easily run queries to find out what is the cost per square foot on all of these properties. They could get things very lined up if they wanted to per, an area or zip code and whatnot. But yet for some reason, and the proof is all right here, anybody can do the research, you will see that it's all up and down in an area that's relatively small and the buildings are very similar. So that is my big concern, is that why should I pay more, a lot more, than a guy right down the street from me with a very similar sized property? That's my argument.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, so just to address the concerns by the taxpayers, he can look at whatever he wants on our website. It's not going to give you condition, it's not going to give you grade, it's not going to give you CDU, it's not going to give you a lot of information that is inherent in our database that we use to value property. One of his comparables that he used was 3,000 square feet. His property is at 1,200 square feet. Economics tells you that there is a cost of diminishing return. So properties that have higher square footages have a lower price per square foot, and that's usually the way economics works. Mr. Hale did provide us some information late, past the deadline, but as a courtesy, I did review it. He has uses Redfin and Realtor.com. Those are not, in my opinion, accurate. They're using zip code averages, which is everything in that zip code: single family, double family, multifamily, commercial, vacant, anything in that area that's sold, that is their average for the zip code. It's very, very inaccurate and even less accurate than the assessor's office. The assessor's office did offer to settle with Mr. Hale for $208,000 during the board review. He rejected it. The tax commission appraisal came in at $205,000, which is right in line with what we offered the taxpayer during the board review. The only critique I would have is that I feel that the weighting is a little off, and if you weighted it a little differently, it could go anywhere from $205,000 to $213,000. So that $208,000 is right in line. It's even about 10% or less from our revised appraisal that we submitted, which was $234,000.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, I appraised the property, on Chef Mentor Highway, and I came out with a total value of $205,000 with an improvement value of $173,600 and a land value of $31,400. And all of my sales were on Chef Mentor Highway.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing no questions, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the LTC staff appraisal at land at 31,400, improvements at 173,600, and total value of 205,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay.
The next appeal we'll take up is item X. It's the appeal of Royal Judson Mitchell Jr. versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77009.
Judson Mitchell, Royal Mitchell. Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen.
One second, sir. Can you look at that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Judge, I believe that I'm sorry, force of habit.
I got too many friends that are judges that would be upset for you to call me a judge, so it's all good.
Are we just gonna enter agreement on that?
Yeah, if you want, I can.
Judge, sir, I would be happy to stipulate to the appraisal that was, done by this, your appraiser. I believe it's a fair and reasonable value of the property.
Okay, New Orleans Assessor's Office?
So if it please the commission, we've come to a consent agreement with the taxpayer for a value of 202,500 for the land, 557,500 for the building, for a total fair market value that is $760,000.
And that's correct.
Any questions from the commission? Motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to agree with the assessor and the property owner of a land value of $202,500, improvement $557,500, a total of $760,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I do believe that's the only taxpayers we have here. So we'll move to the beginning of our docket. We'll at item A, the appeal of Old Oaks Holding LLC versus the Assessors LG William and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-71057.
Mr. Alvarez?
All right. 157, gotcha. All right.
I'm not too low in that. I'm the only appraiser here.
Okay, so this property is a multifamily property located in the South Carrollton / Cemeteries neighborhood. It was originally valued at $350,300, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. We performed a fee simple appraisal on that property. It came in at $377,400. Even though it was higher, we're asking the commission to affirm the Board of Review's value on that for this property here, appeal. So just to take a look at it, the most recent MLS listing on this property, number 2426555, includes with our appraisal, has interior photos of it. It's listed in excellent condition. The reason why we think that the commission's appraisal is lower is because they didn't put it in excellent condition, even though it's listed in MLS as excellent condition. There's a couple of critiques, I think. We have 713 Solomon has the wrong MLS number on it. 4727 Cleveland. It's in the notes. It says that the owner is the agent's sister and seller is motivated. To me, that seems like that is, I want to get rid of it, and it's not necessarily going to be market value. So if you adjust for the conditions and you weight it, it would be a lot higher than the $243,000 value.
LTC appraiser?
Tell me.
Yeah, George Wallace, Louisiana Tax Commission. I did appraise the subject property, had an uncontested land value of $62,200. Did a sales comparison approach, came up with a range of $217,500 to $256,900. Most weight was given to cell 2 and 3 for that approach to value, which had a value of $248,000. Did a gross rent multiplier analysis as well and came up with $239,000. Based on those two approaches, I correlated the final value at $243,000. That's land $62,200, improvements $180,800. I did not do a thorough review of the assessor's appraisal. I would like to note their comp 2 is listed that it sold for $470,000. That's incorrect. It sold for $316,400. I really can't get into the details of it because I didn't research it, but that's incorrect. I have any questions? I'll answer any questions. I'm sorry.
Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, just to confirm, I had noticed the same thing with that comp 2, which is 535 South Hennessy. So I've in doing so, I guess it's not a question, just a statement in preparation for a motion.
Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept a value of 290,700. That's based upon using the 316,000 and coming up with all sales average for the assessor in comparison to LTC, I'm sorry. That adjusted average for the assessor plus the LTC's average comes to 290,700. So that's 62,200 for land, 228,500 for improvement.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have item B, the appeal of Old Oaks Holdings LLC versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-71058.
All right. Good
New Orleans
morning.
Assessors Office.
I'm just buying time here so my stuff can come up. This property is pretty much the same as the other property. It's a block over. It's a multifamily property located in the same neighborhood. We initially had valued the property at 400,500, slightly larger. At 1,716 square feet. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. Took a look at the conditions. It's listed in MLS number 2399420, in very good condition, and the appraisal is done as an average condition. If you take the condition issues into effect and you weight it, it would come in somewhere between 356 and 365, which is a little bit higher than the commission's appraisal at the 321. We think that that's a good range for that value, 356 to 365, considering the condition issues is really the only thing I have for the appraisal.
Okay, LTC appraiser.
Yeah, George Wallace again, Louisiana Tax Commission. I appraised this property at South 25 South Hennessy. Had an uncontested land value of 97,200. Had a sales comparison approach that came in at 319,000. Did a gross rent multiplier that came in at 322,000. Both of these approaches were considered and came up with the final value of $321,000. The reason being for the condition, I did have a repair report that was supplied by the property owner that was done, I believe in October of 23, that did note some repairs that were, I don't know if they were immediate repairs or just down the road repairs, but nonetheless, I took that into consideration in the condition. Also consider, so I like to consider the comments that are made by realtors, but those are generated as listings to begin with. And then down the road, when they sell, they end up as a comparables or as a sale. So I do consider the condition issues that a realtor may say. I think some of them are pretty subjective. So I like to dig deep a little bit more into the comparables when I'm doing it and not just hang my hat on what a realtor says. No offense to any realtors out there, but that's how I analyze condition. So again, my final value, 321,000.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
If I may, I apologize, Chairman. I was just going to give you the breakdown of, I didn't get a chance to give the breakdown. It was 356 with a land of 97.2 and a building of 258.8. And we feel that that is fair. It's slightly higher than the tax commission staff appraisal, but like I said, it was leased in very good condition, not average. He has average. It would bump it up if he affected the condition.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the presentation recently by Orleans Parish Assessor. That total of 365,000, I believe it was in total. Just doing an all
356.
356, I'm sorry.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
And just repeating that that allocation, if you would.
Yes, sir.
97,200 for land.
Yes, sir. 258.8 for the building for a total fair market value of 356.
On the motion? Motion is adopted.
I should have taken the 365.
All right, item C is the appeal of Old Oaks Holdings versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-71060.
Mr. Alvarez?
This property is right in the same general area. It's a slightly smaller land, but the building is slightly bigger than unit number A. Oh, sorry, item number A. This property, pull up the appeal form, is another multifamily property. We initially valued the property at 304,100. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. We did a fee simple appraisal, a revised appraisal for the tax commission's valuation, which came in at a value of 298,100 with a improvement of 169,600 and a land of 45,400, which we think is fair for this property and would put it right in line with item number A, which was at 290.
Okay. George, LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir, George Wallace again. The uncontested land value on this property was 45,400. Sales comparison approach had a final value of 234,000. Gross rent multiplier 247,000. Correlation between the two comes up with 240,000. That would be 45,400 for the land and 194,600 for the improvements. I did consider the no, I'm sorry, that was on something else. Yeah, the final value 240,000.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
Just to ask Russell to reiterate his final settlement request.
It is
I believe it was 292,000 in total.
45,400 for the land, 169,600 for the building, 298,100 for the total value. That's not right. Their math is off. Hold on. It's 45,400 for the land, 252,600 for the building for a total fair market value of 298,000. Sorry, my guys put the wrong value on the appraisal form.
So you're asking for 298.1, not 292.
298 even. Sorry, it's 45,400 for the land, 252,600 for the building for 298 even.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's request. Looked at a comparable going back to that 535 South Hennessy. The proper value for the sale on the assessor's appraisal this time did match LTC in comparison to A, and given in line with comparable neighborhood and the decision on A comparabilities, I rule with the 298.1, 45,400 for land, 252,600 for improvement.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have item D. It's the appeal of King Cake Real Estate LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-71061.
Mr. Alvarez?
The property is a multifamily property in the South Carrollton neighborhood, same neighborhood. The property was originally valued at 497,100 with our camera system. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. We've since performed a fee simple appraisal on the property. That fee simple appraisal property is a little bit lower. It came in at $447,000, which we think is fair. It's a little bit slightly higher than the tax commission staff appraisal value, but the thing that I want to keep in mind is that the comparables that were used were not new construction. This property is a new construction in 2020, so it's only a couple years old. The comparables were not a couple years old. So I think that that would favor our valuation of the 447, which I think is fair.
LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. George Wallace again. Again, uncontested land value, 88,900. Sales comparison approach had a value of 375,000. Gross rent multiplier, 372,000. Final estimated value, 375,000. That would be 286,100 for the improvements and 88,900 for the land.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for both assessor and LTC appraiser. Did anyone visit this property in its exact location?
I did not personally visit. The appraiser who performed the fee simple appraisal did visit the location exterior.
Yes, sir. I did an exterior inspection.
And was there any consideration of its location as presented by the taxpayer and the visual outside its front door?
No, sir, I didn't consider that. It's hard to pinpoint specifics on certain areas in New Orleans that may be a little possibly perceived as undesirable.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to go with the LTC staff's appraisal of 375,000. That's 88,900 for the land, 286,100 for the IMP, and it's within range of one of their comparables, the 508 South Pierce. Both of them did a appraisal on that, and it's very much within the range of that adjusted price too.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have item E. It's the appeal of CTN Holding LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-71062.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes. So once again, this is also another property in the South Carrollton area. We initially valued the property at $581,400. The Board of Review affirmed that. The tax commission did come in with a significantly lower value. Our revised fee simple appraisal came in at $483,000. This is a pretty nice sized property, almost 2,000 square feet. I think the only difference between our value and the tax commission's value is that it's valued as average condition. It's not new construction. It was constructed in 2016, so it is 8 years old. But we feel that that would put that in the very good condition and not average condition, considering that it was constructed in 2016 for over $200,000.
Thank you. Can you hear from Mr. Wallace, the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. George Wallace. I appraised the property at 519 South Hennessy. Had an uncontested land value that's supported at 62,300. Sales comparison approach had a final value of 325,000. Gross rent multiplier came up with 322,000. The two supported methods had a correlated value of 323,000 total, which is 260,700 for the improvements and 62,300 for the land.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for a value of 375,000 with there being no comps and such a disparity in the condition rating. All sales averaged 375,262 with the assessor being at 425,000, LTC at 325,000. So that would be land at 62,300, improvements at 312,700.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have item F, the appeal of CTN Holding LLC versus Assessor LG Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-71063.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So once again, I feel like I'm on a loop. This is a multifamily property in the South Carrollton neighborhood. We originally valued it at 400,800. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. We did a fee simple appraisal, which came in slightly higher at 407. It is slightly larger than the last two properties at 2,100, over 2,100 square feet. We feel that the initial valuation of the 400,800 would put it in line with the last two properties because it's slightly larger than those.
Thank you. Can we hear from Mr. Wallace, LTC appraiser?
Yes, I appraised this property at 527 South Hennessy, uncontested land, 64,700. Sales comparison approach had an adjusted value range of 323 to 348. Final value for that approach is 337,000. Gross rent multiplier analysis came in at 332,000. So I had a final correlated value between the two approaches at 334,000.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Just confirming, if I could, Mr. Wallace, one of your comps was 528 South Solomon.
Yes, sir.
And for Russell, I believe the same for you, correct?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional question? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr.
A
Chair,
motion to, for a value of 360,000, which is 64,700 on land, 295,300 improvements, total of $360,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of CTN Holdings versus Assessor LG Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-71066.
Mr. Alvarez?
All right. This property is, surprise, surprise, a multifamily property in the South Carrollton neighborhood. It was originally valued at $374,000, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. That was our CAM evaluation. We did a fee simple appraisal of the property, which came in at $389,000. We're asking for the $374,000. I think really the same situation with all the other properties. The only really difference we have between the tax commission's appraisal and our appraisal is that it was listed in very good condition in July of 23. That MLS listing and interior photos are provided with the appraisal that was presented to the commission, and it is not valued in very good condition, and the staff's appraisal is valued in average condition. And I feel that if we would adjust the conditions, we'd be right in line with where we're at.
Okay, thank you. LTC appraiser, Mr. Wallace?
Yes, sir. 4309 Bodan Street is, I believe, is this item. I got a little behind, but it's yeah, uncontested land value 61,100. Sales comparison approach had a tight range of 3,057 to 328,200 for a final value of 315,000 for the sales comparison approach. Gross rent multiplier came in close at 316,000. Final estimated value is 315,000. That's 61,100 for the land, 253,900 for the improvements.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Orleans Parish Assessor's appraisal at 61,100 for land and 312,900 for improvements, for a total of 374,000 total.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay. Next, we have item M, the appeal of Michelle M. Zimbo versus Assessor L.G. Williams in Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72149.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. So this property is a multifamily, no, I'm just kidding. This property is not a multifamily property, the Carrollton area. So this property is located on 606 Esplanade Avenue. There was a slight discrepancy in the gross living area. We made several attempts to verify with the taxpayers' discrepancy questions. We made several attempts to verify the discrepancy raised by the taxpayer. However, the taxpayer did not respond. The property was measured a few years ago by the assessor's office. There was no information provided by the taxpayer to dispute that, so we have our gross living area of 6726 square feet. This property, I think really if you take a look at it, what was provided to the assessor's office in their information at the board review is that it's insured for $1.5 million for the building and it rents for $4,500 a month. The main difference that we have between the tax commission and the assessor's office is the square feet. There's mention about ANSI, ANSI, which I'm not sure what that has to do with assessor's offices. The ANSI does not have any jurisdiction for assessors. It's a nonprofit group. It's not a governmental entity. I believe that question was brought before the commission earlier from Moss Street. There's claims that there's quality differences, but there's no photos or documentation to support those differences that I could see, and no contributory value for the second story of the apartment in the back. There only has 525 square foot level in the rear. It's actually a two-story and not a one-story. So I think those issues aside, our initial valuation or our request is a fair value of $1,740,000, considering that would put the property at lower than what it's actually insured for. That put the building at $1,414,600 and it's insured for $1.5 million.
LTC appraiser, Mr. Blanchard?
One second. Good morning, Commissioners. Danny Blanchard, appraiser, Louisiana Tax Commission. I performed an appraisal at 606 Esplanade Avenue and came up with a value of, using the sales comparison approach, came up with a value of $1,600,000, which has a breakdown of $325,400 on the land and $1,274,600 on improvements. There's a couple of interesting moving parts on this. Obviously, its location. Esplanade Avenue is a perimeter street of the French Quarter, and as such, it's heavily traveled. So it's probably not the most desirable street. Certainly not Royal Street. It's not the most desirable street in the French Quarter. The second thing, but more importantly, is the size. I received a call from the assessor's office wanting to know how did I come up with my square footage, and their position was they did not mention a physical measure of the property, but rather the owner's completion of a LAT form. That's an assessment form. But here's what's important. I researched this. The property has never been listed in recent years. I researched it through multiple listing service, the University of New Orleans Real Estate Data Bank, which is a private data bank that I happen to have access to, various online sources. And if you look at other sources like a Zillow, the Redfin, and a Realtor.com, all of those sources are actually pulling the square footage from the assessor's website, which coincidentally is the 6,726 square feet. I use the assessor's floor plan that's published on their website to calculate my gross living area. No other measurements, the assessor's own floor plan. So again, according to David, he didn't mention once about the property being measured. What he did mention is that he was basing the square footage on a lat form that was completed by the taxpayer. So just thought I'd disclose that, so in the interest of fairness. So anyway, getting back to the appraisal, I happen to have, found, two properties on Esplanade Avenue and one that was, in a superior location within the French Quarter. Made adjustments for the similarities, particularly location and, size being the two big ones. My sales range from $1,490,000 to $2 million, and we, after adjustment for measurable differences, concluded a value of $1,600,000.
Mr. Alvarez, you have a comment?
Just to clarify for Mr. Danny's edification and everyone else, the assessor's office has measured every building in the city of New Orleans. They hired Tyler Technologies to do that. Now, obviously, they weren't able to go into certain properties that were completely gated off, but there was a physical measurement performed on every property. And once again, I'm not trying to split hairs with the commission staff appraisal, but he's at 1.6 million. I'm at 1.740. We're right in line with each other, and I think the 1.740 is an accurate indicator of value considering his sale range goes all the way up to over $2 million. So I feel that that would be, our prayer is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
So I'm not settled on the square footage issue, Mr. Russell, that the taxpayer submitted this through a lat form to your site, the 6,726. And you're also saying that that was measured at some point in time to confirm that, even though the taxpayer didn't respond to your request on that?
So recently, there was a dispute by the taxpayer for square footage. We reached out to the taxpayer. They did not respond to us. I'm not aware of what they put on a lat form. Every property owner in the state of Louisiana is required to submit a self-reporting form. It's a LAT1 for residential properties. I'm not sure what they put on that. I worked for Tyler Technologies. Part of the contract that was awarded to the city of New Orleans or the board of assessors, because it was a board of 7 at that time. So I know for 100% fact that Tyler Technologies measured every single property in the city of New Orleans that they were physically able to get to. This property is not encumbered by a large gate, completely locked around, so we were able to measure the property. That is from my own personal experience. I'm not sure what was put on a lat form. I didn't speak to Mr. Mejia about that. I do know that there was a physical measurement that was performed on it and that the taxpayer did not respond to our request to go out and physically measure it currently for this appeal, if that clarifies that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, if I may, I have a breakdown using the assessor's floor plan that's posted on their website. Using those calculations, using those dimensions and calculations, that's included in my appraisal. So by his own admission, if it was in fact measured, I used those measurements that are posted on their website to calculate the 6,201 square feet of gross living area.
Thank you, Danny.
And then my only thing is, if you add the extra story in the back that is not included in Mr. Danny's appraisal, it's 6,726. He used one story in the back and it's a 2-story quarter in the back of the properties.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just for clarification, for the property sketch, that would be item B, which is in the back, that does in fact show an area of 525 square feet, 1 story.
Yes. And according to Ms. Blanchard's appraisal, we feel that our appraisal square footage is correct because if you take all the consideration, what is missing out of his appraisal, which should be included, it would be our square footage.
So quick question, Mr. Chairman, for the LTC Tax Commissioner, Mr. Blanchard. So you actually had access to the property?
No, sir. Performed it on an exterior inspection and used aerial websites, aerial measurements to verify the dimension of the building.
Any additional question? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish assessment of $1,740,000. That's $325,400 for the land, $1,414,600 for the improvement.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Glenn J. Charbonnet versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73149.
Mr. Alvarez?
We don't have anything from the taxpayer on this. I'm gonna make it really short and sweet. We were at 215,000. The Board of Review affirmed that. The tax commission came in at 218,000, which is higher. I called the taxpayer to withdraw. He refused to withdraw. So we're happy with 218,000 if that's the rule of the commission.
Is there any questions from the commission? Any questions for the LTC appraiser? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's request of 48,000 for land, improvement of 167,800 for a total of 215,800.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Now we're moving on to item S. It's the appeal of Assessor L.G. Williams appeal of Assessor L.G. Williams versus Valine Developments in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73203.
Mr. Alvarez?
All right. Just bear with me 1 second, apologize. So this property is a multifamily property located in the new Marigny 8th Ward. It was originally valued at 213,400. The Board of Review reduced it for no good reason. They say comps provided by the appellant supported reduction, but there was no information provided to us during the Board review. There was no information provided to us for the tax mission appraisal. The taxpayers are not here to question. The commission's appraisal is slightly lower. It's in the range. We did an appraisal that came in at 217,000, so it's kind of a higher. Our 213 is in the middle of all three values, so we're asking the commission to affirm our initial value of 213,400.
Okay, LTC appraised, Mr. Bolton?
Yes, sir. I made an exterior inspection on this property. It was an uncontested land value of 24,400. I did an income approach and I got 190 from the income and 185 from the market approach. I've settled at 188, 188,000. That's 24.4 for the land, 163.6 for the bridge.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr.
Hearing
Chairman,
none.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the Orleans Parish appraisal at 24,400 for land and improvements at 189,000 for a total of 213,400.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next is item T, the appeal of Assessor L.G. Williams versus Valine Developments in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73210.
Alvarez?
All right. This property was originally valued at 407,200. It was reduced by the Board of Review. I'll take a look at the notes. And they said the same thing, but they didn't really provide anything during the Board review or to us to review to make sure we had an issue with our value. Taxpayers not here either. The original valuation that was done, 427,200, is right in line with the tax mission's appraisal of 408. If you take a look at the insurance that the taxpayer has is 316,100, plus their land is 449, which is actually higher than all the values. So we think that the 427, 200 is a good value.
LTC appraiser, Mr. Bennett.
Paul Bennett with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 921 or 921 Desire Street with a undisputed land value of 133,200, approved value of 274,800 for a total value of 408,000. This was achieved via the sales comparison approach and the income approach, with the sales comparison approach coming in at 408,000 and the income at 447,500. Upon reviewing the assessor's appraisal of the property, both comps 1 and 2 in both our reports are identical and pretty much overlap each other.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's request of 427,200. It's land at 133,200, improvement at 294,000. As pointed out, the comps are really tight, and the average of all sales are really tight in line with that.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Port Street LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73212.
Mr. Alvarez?
This property is list is in the 1400 block of Port Street, was originally valued at 141.6, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. The commission's appraisal is slightly higher at 156. Our own fee simple appraisal is at 188. However, our prayer was to uphold our original value, 141.6.
Mr. Bennett?
Paul Bennett, Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 1419 Port Street with a undisputed land value of 22,300, improvement value of 133,700 for a total of 156,000. This is completed via the sales comparison approach at 156,000 and the income approach at 140,500.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the assessor's value of $23,300 on land, improvements $119,300, total of $141,600.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Lincoln Grove 2 LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-74081.
Mr. Alvarez?
So this is a weird property. I took a look at it and it was originally valued at 169,400, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. We did a fee simple appraisal, which came in slightly lower at 163. It's slightly higher than the tax commission's appraisal value of 130. This one is a kind of a weird property. It was sold multiple times in a bundle. It's a LIHTC property. We don't have any particulars of what the rents are. It was sold in 22 and 23, 3 times. The tax commission's appraisal is lower than our valuation. I don't know if they were privy to rents. We were not able to get any rents. The only critique that I would have is stuff that the tax commission staff appraisal wouldn't be privy to. Both of his first 2 comps were successions. However, I don't think he would know that there was a succession in 1988 on the first comp. And then comp 2 was in 2018. It was also succession property. It was recorded in 18. So it kind of lowers it a little bit. But like I said, this is a weird property. It's a LIHTC, so I'm not sure where our value would be based on what the rent structure is. We don't have the rents. It was not provided to us. So we're asking for the slightly reduced value of the 163 from where we are at the 160. I think it was 169, 169.4, so we're asking for 163. Yes, sir, I believe that is correct. Let me double check the math before
Will you do that? Let's hear from the LTC appraiser. Luke?
Good morning. Luke Brewer with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the subject property at 3634 First Street. It's a single-family residence. The appellant or taxpayer did appeal the land value, so a land sales analysis was included. Came in a little bit higher than the assessed value for the land. As is a single-family residence, we did not develop an income approach. We used only the sales comparison approach, and Mr. Alvarez is correct. I was not aware that sales 1 and 2 were succession properties. However, I think the adjustments are appropriate. They appear to have sold at arm's length transactions or at market value, which would be considered arm's length. And the range is fairly tight, a range between 114, 197 to 155, 650 after adjustments. The only comment that I would make, because I think we're fairly close, is I did notice that the comparable sale that we both used in the same reports, 3819 3rd Street, it seems that the concessions amounts may have been missed on the assessor's appraisal, which, you know, is an oversight that can happen to anybody. But if you take that out, I think that may change comparable sale 3 on the assessor's appraisal to a little bit lower number, as those concessions were over $27,000. But after my adjustments, the value range that I came upon was 130,000. The land value indicated is 37,800, which is higher than the assessor's value, and the improvement value is 92,200.
Thank you, Luke. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the LTC staff's appraisal of 130,000. That's 30,200 for the land, 99,800 for the improvement. Just going off of that, and they're common comparable at 3rd Street, the average of that's right at 132. So that's why I'm going with that.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Lewis S. Strauss versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-76183.
Mr. Alvarez?
I'll make this one short and sweet too. We sent a settlement agreement to the taxpayer for $1 million. It was not, we didn't hear back from them, so we're still good with that value. Our fee simple appraisal is actually $1,045,000. That's kind of splitting hairs.
Questions from the commission? Any questions for the LTC appraiser? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the value of 1 million, land at 154,000, improvement at 846,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
And also please note that item Y was settled earlier in the hearing. That's Old Oaks Holdings 23221-77044 has been settled. Next, we'll take up the appeal of Project New LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77080.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. Same situation as the last one. We actually sent a settlement agreement for $60,000 to the taxpayer. We haven't heard back from them, which happens to be the commission's appraisal.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the assessor's value agreeing with the LTC staff appraisal of $16,700 of land, improvements $43,300, total of $60,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Lincoln Grove One LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-77081.
Mr. Alvarez.
Yeah, so same situation as before. We actually offered to settle for the 213,000. I don't think we should have because we were 215,000. This is kind of the definition of a frivolous appeal, but since we offered it, I have to go by it.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Any questions for the LTC appraiser? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the LTC staff appraisal at $120,000 for land, $93,000 for improvements, for a total of $213,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. Just on that, I agree with what he's saying, but I just want to make sure we get our land and improvement stuff right
yes,
on
sir.
that. Is the land around there, is 48,000 where the land needs to be?
48,000, yes. 48,000 for the land, 167.5. No, I'm sorry, that's our value.
Be 165,000 for the improvement to make 213. I don't want to get y'all's land out of whack,
Yeah,
but it'd be the same overall value.
165 for the building and 48 for the land.
Okay, we're going to amend that motion to, if Mr. Guidry is acceptable, to reflect the land, uniform land values with the additional money on the improvements. Any discussion on the amended motion? Adopt.
Please note the remainder of our docket has either been settled or withdrawn.
Is there any other business to come before the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Call for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we